Or Michael Cohen testified before Congress. I mean, to me, it was like Pavarotti was singing, you know. He made some damning claims, but a lot of it looked like an episode of Congress Gone Wild. Watch.
When I say con man, I'm talking about a man who declares himself brilliant, but directed me to threaten his high school, his colleges, and the college board to never release his grades or SAT scores. He doesn't give you questions, he doesn't give you orders. He speaks in a code.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. No one should ever listen to you and give you credibility.
I just find it interesting, sir, that between yourself and your colleagues, that not one question so far since I'm here has been asked about President Trump.
So in between all that showboating, there were takeaways from Cohen's testimony. He produced checks signed by Trump, which Cohen said were to reimburse him for paying off Stormy Daniels. Remember that? Yeah. That Trump knew ahead of time about the WikiLeaks dump that would damage the Clinton campaign. He knew it, he said. That Trump's lawyers helped him craft his false statement about Trump Tower Moscow. Maybe they're going to be called in front of Congress. And that he threatened 500 people on Trump's behalf, you know, with lawsuits and what have you. You just heard a little bit of that. It was kind of like The Godfather a little bit there, wasn't it? I thought they were going to produce one. His cousin who lives in Italy now, bring him out, you know, to like really.
It wouldn't have shocked me in that moment.
No.
Felt that way.
Yeah.
What else could happen?
So who came out looking worse, Trump, Cohen, or the Republicans in Congress this time?
What do you think, Senator?
Well, I don't know. You're the lawyer, so.
You were
legitimately, I want to know the legal aspect of it.
I was glued to the TV. I watched part of it with Joy in her dressing room. We tweeted that out, and then I listened to some of it in the car, and then I went and I watched it at home, and then I went back home and I had DVR'd it and I watched it again. I
DVR'd
it. Like 8 hours.
It was 8 hours, and I took notes.
It was riveting. It was riveting television.
Yeah. You know, I had 3 legal takeaways. One was that Stormy Daniels, the payment, the hush money payment to Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal. I thought that those were hush payments to influence the outcome of an election. He didn't want the American people to know about it. And one of those checks was sent while he was in the White House in August of 2017. Right. I thought that was really, really significant because that is an end around campaign finance laws, and that's something Megan and I have been talking about for a long time.
Does that rise to the level of crimes and misdemeanors, which would cause the impeachment?
I don't think he's ever going to be impeached because it also requires 2/3 of the vote of the Senate, and I don't think Senate Republicans are going to do that.
After all this, you think they won't?
But I do think it's a federal crime. The second thing that was interesting to me was the Trump's refusal to divest his businesses. And our founding fathers wanted to make sure that our president puts the business of the country before lining his personal pockets.
Right.
And I think that Michael Cohen made it very clear that the only reason President Trump even ran to become president was because he wanted to line his personal pockets. And I think he puts every single decision that he makes, I think he makes it so that he can further line his pockets.
That's why he ran. I said it 2 years ago.
And
he
so
ran
I
to
think
make
that's
money.
a violation of the emoluments clause.
But did you notice how they could not defend Trump? All they could do on the Republican side was attack. Not one of them stood up and said, my president is not a racist, a con man, or a cheat. No one said that.
No. And just my third legal point was, if you remember, he talked about the Southern District of New York, Michael Cohen, and said that there's this ongoing investigation. On the Richter scale for lawyers, that was like an earthquake. I was like, oh my gosh! And that is because the Southern District of New York is known for prosecuting financial crimes, and they are the best in the business at doing it. And when you have the Southern District of New York looking through the Trump organization's finances and the inaugural committee, they go after the principals. So people like Ivanka and Don Jr. and the president should be very worried about that.
You also can't be pardoned, right? If it's from the Southern District?
Well, you can be pardoned because that's still the federal office. But if the state then starts looking into it too, that's trouble. And so Russia collusion, whatever, I thought that was the biggest takeaway. I think Trump should be really nervous about that.
I mean, we only have 2 minutes, and I know we all have a lot. I mean, it was a long day yesterday.
Yeah.
The big takeaway legally for me was the WikiLeaks. It's his word versus the president's at this point. If he wrote in his writings to Mueller that he didn't know about the WikiLeaks beforehand, and what Michael Cohen is saying is true, then that would be the crime, that he lied about that. On a personal note, I thought it was...
that would be the crime?
Lying, if he lied to Mueller in
Collusion.
his statement about not knowing about WikiLeaks.
Perjury?
And, well, yeah, I mean, I think that's where the trouble would be in that moment, right? Because he would be dishonest about not knowing about WikiLeaks, the president. Yeah. Is that not a problem?
It could be.
Why do you shrug your shoulders
So
like that?
you can lie to the federal prosecutor and it's not...
Well, no, it could be, but I mean, on the scale of 1 to 10 of lies, I mean, he's a liar.
Well, yeah, we know that.
I don't know.
We know he's a liar,
but
but
I was like-
prove it.
But I think that could be cause for working. So the middleman here was Roger Stone, and his story, Michael Cohen he was in the office, and Roger Stone called him saying, "I just talked to Julian Assange," and he said that expect these WikiLeaks on the emails, and Trump apparently said, "Well, good."
That would be great or something.
If he lied about that, personally, I think that's bad.
Well, so Roger Stone needs to flip in that case, right?
And he will.
Well,
And he will.
well,
Because when they say you're going to go to jail, they all turn.
They all turn.
And there's so many more to turn. So
And
many.
they sing.
Anyway, the highlight for me, it was a horrible moment for this country. I went to bed sick to my stomach. I thought it was sad. It was sad to me. And I thought at the very end was Elijah Cummings, who's the ranking member. You didn't know which party he was from. He gave me goosebumps and at one point brought tears to my eyes because he talked about this country. He talked about the fact that we need to better ourselves. And he said it far better than I was planning to say on the show today.
He said we're better than this.
So I want him to say what I would have said, but in a much better way. So let him take it away.
Yeah.
As a country, we are so much better than this. The one meeting I had with President Trump, I said to him, the greatest gift that you and I, Mr. President, can give to our children is making sure that we give them a democracy that is intact. A democracy better than the one that we came upon. And I'm hoping that the things you said today will help us begin to get back there.
Okay, he's quite a beautiful person, in my opinion.
But I'm not an ideologue. I don't watch this and find
You're not.
joy. I'm not. And people can criticize me for that because you're not one extreme or the other. But I don't watch this and feel joy. I don't watch these hearings and say, good, we can finally get Trump. I want the best for this country. I really do. And I know that people at this table do as well. But I think he spoke for many people like myself who said, take the politics out of this. Take the race, take the cheating, take the lying, take all of that out of it. What are we passing down to our kids? What example are we setting for our children?
We've been watching 2 years of demoralizing this country by the man at the top.
Yeah.
So yesterday was a comeuppance, and I liked it.
Yeah, I have a few things really quick. First and foremost, I don't know if this makes me a good analyst or a bad analyst, but I really was more interested in what was going on with Kim Jong-un and feeling great sympathy and compassion for Otto Warmbier's family and the things the president said about not believing that North Korea had tortured and killed him, which he did, and the human rights violations that continue to be sort of okayed in our country. And I don't know if that makes me a bad analyst on this show, but I really was more...
Why do you say that?
Because the spectacle of the hearing, I thought, didn't move the needle one way or the other. I think if you're a Trumper, it didn't change anything. I think if you hate Trump, it didn't change anything. One thing that surprised me, and I will say this, is AOC, I thought, actually had one of the best lines of questioning of anyone. And I want to show it really quick, if we can.
To your knowledge, did the president ever provide inflated assets to an insurance company?
Yes.
Who else knows that the president did this?
Alan Weisselberg, Ron Lieberman, and Matthew Calamari.
And where would the committee find more information on this? Do you think we need to review his financial statements and his tax returns in order to compare them?
Yes, and you'd find it at the Trump org.
So she was asking for names and receipts, and she wasn't using this as a platform to, put her agenda one way or the other, to grandstand for the cameras. That's how it's done. And I'm highly critical of her, but that was the best line of questioning.
Okay.
But I don't think the needle was moved one way or the other if you're a Trump
As far
supporter.
as career is concerned, the president did not the great deal maker did not listen to Intel, who told him that Kim is not ready to make a deal. He went anyway, because why not? To distract from the hearings, probably. And then he comes away empty-handed, and he says, well, sometimes you have to walk away from the White House, okay?
Yeah.
racist part?
Yeah, I
Go
also
ahead.
think one of the reasons that he wants to always be around Kim Jong-un is because he thinks that there are financial opportunities in North Korea. Also, the ability to line his pockets.
Well, he said
You know,
that.
how many years has he got left?
Can we just really quickly,
God.
extermination, murder, enslavement, torture, imprisonment, rape, forced abortion, sexual violence, the forcible transfer of populations. North Korea
One of the
is
worst.
one of the worst
Yeah. One of
the
international
worst.
actors
Look at 'em.
that exist.
One of the worst.
And the fact that Otto Warmbier's family has to sit through being told that their son was not tortured and killed, which he was, by our
But
president,
Megyn, I
is
ask
the
you
one
again,
that-
based just on that kind of treasonous behavior, why does the party stick with him? Why?
Yeah.
Because the alternative that is being presented in front of a lot of Republicans is socialism, third-term abortions, things that I just could never get behind. And you have to present something that is rational.
Well, those
If you
two
become-
things are being used as cudgels against
it's not.
Democrats because there are nuances to
I'm not-
socialism and infantilism.
I think I
it's
have
not
made-
what's really happening, so people need to understand what those words really mean.
I'm a highly educated woman. I know exactly what those things mean, and I understand what Bernie Sanders is presenting in front of me, and I do not agree with that.
Bernie Sanders is just one.
I don't think you need to be educated to agree or disagree. I think people can have different
That's
opinions.
true. I'm
and
sorry, yes.
oftentimes, that's not what you were saying, but oftentimes
But I
it's-
understand what socialism is and what democratic socialism is and what is being presented in
But
front
if
of
you
me, and I
disagree,
disagree
it
with
doesn't
it.
mean you're not
Medicare,
like, but the
Social
other-
Security,
the other
those are
thing-
all socialist programs.
But the other
Medicare,
thing-
Social Security,
the other-
unemployment
But
insurance, those are
but listen,
socialist programs.
I am a small government
Yeah.
conservative.
Right.
And you
I
don't
am-
want any
I
of
am
that.
a small government, America First conservative. And what is being presented to me on the alternative side is too radical for me.
Okay.
And this is also too radical for me as well. And I've made that very clear on many separate
Okay.
occasions. And I feel like when Abby and I are asked to be responsible for the sins of this administration,
Nobody's
it is unfair.
asking you to do that.
But when you say when
But we can't answer
Republicans,
for
I
you.
am
asking
a
you.
Republican.
Yeah, but can I also say this? I don't think that this is your Republican Party. These are Trumpicans now.
But there are
Finish
many-
your sentence.
There is no more Republican
Okay,
Party.
we have